Let's go. Good. Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry for that small delay. We are here on Tuesday, April 16th, of course, in County Chambers. It is 6:39 p.m. Thank you all for coming out. I hope you had a few minutes to enjoy the sunshine. It's really great to see that. I think spring is beginning to entrench itself, but I'm sure we'll still have some cold and maybe snowy days ahead, who's to say. So just quickly, a few comments. Yesterday, we hosted a County Road 43 information session. It was very well attended by many members of our community. Unfortunately, due to some significant technical challenges, we were unable to live stream that meeting as much as we had really wanted to. So we are now in the process of planning a fully virtual meeting on County Road 43. So anyone who would like to participate online or watch a full recording of a information session on County Road 43 that was similar to last evening's, we'll be able to do that. And I think we have a tentative date, Keena, of May 1st. Am I right? We're working towards that?
Yes, you're correct. We're looking at May 1st. Awesome.
So please spread the word. And there's lots of information now on the North Grenville website. There is a dedicated County Road 43 page. There's lots and lots of information. Of course, this is a multi-year project and it will affect each and every one of us to some extent or another. So we want to make sure we communicate effectively. I also just want to extend on behalf of council our gratitude and thanks for the many volunteers, some of whom are here tonight, who really power and fuel North Grenville each and every day. And this afternoon, I had a bit of an opportunity to make a tour around some of the organizations that really do benefit from a tremendous number of volunteers, including our North Grenville Senior Services Center, among others, our youth center. So I want to make a special shout out to Tammy Holbert. Tammy, of course, is our manager of Rec and Community Services, and she's also the driver behind a new volunteer initiative to better recruit, connect those individuals in the community to an opportunity through some existing organizations or some emerging organizations. So I want to thank Tammy, who's worked super hard on that, and I know there's more to come. And then quickly, two other things. Of course, Habitat for Humanity, they have their Restore Grand opening this on April 20th. I was going to say that's next Saturday, but that's actually this Saturday at 11 a.m. at their new location, which is in the Kemptville Mall. And that's relocation to the Kemptville Mall has been a really successful one for them, and they're very excited to have a grand opening. And finally, we have the Community Living Comedy Night. It is back, and it is also on Saturday, April 20th in the evening. So I would encourage you to come out for that. And with all of those things out of the way, I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask a council colleague to read the land acknowledgement, please. Councilor Strachan?
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you. So council colleagues, we're going to go to approval of the agenda. It is before you. I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the approval of our agenda. I see Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor Barkley. And I should note, as I'm sure some of you have discovered by now, that we have two council colleagues joining us virtually, Councillor Debbie Wilson and Councillor O'Sullivan. And I'm assuming council colleagues joining virtually that your audio is good now. We're audible? Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'll call the question on that. All in favor, please? Good. That carries. Thank you very much. We don't have a closed session this evening, so I'll go to disclosures of interest. Council colleagues, both virtually and in person, any declarations of perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from tonight's meeting?
No.
Great. Seeing none, I will move on. And I have the pleasure now of welcoming from the Ferguson Forest Center, Carl Cannon and Carl Doucette, and they are presenting on a land proposal. So I'll invite Mr. Doucette and Mr. Cannon down for their delegation. Welcome, gentlemen. And when you come down with our brand new AV system, you'll just have to press the red button to make sure that you're audible, not just to us, but for the live stream and our colleagues who are virtual. So we'll let you get organized. I know there's a fairly elaborate presentation. Ms. Preston, you're queuing it? Okay, great. Okay. So welcome, over to you.
Well, good evening. I would like to thank the mayor and council for the opportunity to present this proposal for the revitalization of the Ferguson Tree Nursery. For those who don't know me, I'm Carl Doucette, president of the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation. And by my side is Carl Cannon, who's a corporation director and the owner of all things Arboretum in the Ferguson Forest Center. Here in the audience tonight is Shannon Nicholson, chair of the corporation's Public Relations and Communications Committee, who worked many hours in the preparation of the material you will see this evening. So Shannon, can you just put your hand up in recognition? Thank you very much. Joining Shannon are some of my colleagues on the board of the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation, whom I thank for their support. Also here this evening is Lynn Tyler, president of the Friends, who, along with her board of directors, some of whom are here tonight, support the proposal being presented this evening. Here tonight as well, not here tonight, is Ed Patchell, former CEO of the Ferguson Tree Nursery, who for over 20 years was instrumental in its operation. And he knows all too well the role of the nursery and what it does in this community. And he also supports this proposal. Finally, I would like to thank the public who came here tonight to, I hope, better understand the rationale for this proposal. To, I hope, better understand the rationale for this proposal and why it is so important for the nursery and, in fact, the community as a whole. We have not made this decision lightly. We have explored private sector partnerships, government grants, and funding, but none were able to identify, we were not able to identify feasible funding options through those avenues. As a not-for-profit organization with depreciated assets and without ownership of the land on which the nursery operates, funding through traditional financial institutions is also not an option. Next.
Yes, as well. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity. And as Carl had mentioned, that there is substantive information that has been provided to Council and is available on the webpage for the Ferguson Forest Center, not the nursery page, but the actual corporation page. And we encourage you to, and any members of the public to look at those. Our walk through the slides today, our slides are very detailed, but we're not going to go to that depth. We know Council is very conversant with the Ferguson Forest Center, and that, again, noting that this information is available through different means. But I do want to note that the tree nursery was operated by the province until 1995, and then it was purchased by the Township of Oxford-on-Rideau just prior to amalgamation. For a few years, a couple of years, the Forestry Center was, their nursery was sustained by volunteers from 1997 through to 2000, who actually went out in the fields and picked weeds and tried to keep it in a manner that would be viable for a nursery purpose on the long run. The land following amalgamation transferred to North Grenville, and then North Grenville leased the land to the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation. The corporation is a not-for-profit social enterprise company, of which our role is to oversee the operation, own and oversee the operation of the nursery, and that revenues from that nursery go back into the nursery and also go into recreation and conservation opportunities. And we've done that for over 20 years. hundreds of millions of seedlings have been produced at the nursery through the years. The Ferguson Forest Center, when it took the lease, undertook to pay back. It was an obligation through the lease to pay rent. And through the years, we have probably contributed towards $750,000 to pay off the $500,000 debt of purchasing the nursery from the province. So we paid that back in sum. And I note, obviously, any money that went towards the lease and the payment of the forestry center did not go into our capital funds in any way. So that was unfortunate. But that was a priority of the municipality, and that was an obligation of the Ferguson Forest Center. As our nursery, we do have 18 employees and five temporary employees. And as you could appreciate, most municipalities would be happy to have a business with that number of employees and would look to attract it. And if it was there, they would look towards obviously business retention. But again, the Ferguson Forestry Center currently operates with a business-focused approach, and we address numerous community-oriented conservation and recreational interests for the benefit of the greater community. Next slide, please.
Can I just ask, Mr. Cannon, when you speak of the 500,000 plus that was repaid back to the municipality, that 500,000, there was the acquisition, which was 500,000, but you referred to 750,000.
So our lease was, I think, approximately $50,000 a year.
Per year
And-
after the mortgage had been, or the
So,
debt had been paid.
Well, once we signed the lease in 2000, there was an obligation to pay 50,000. If you take the number of years that we've had the lease and we paid the rent, we paid, yes, our rent, you're probably looking at about $750,000 that we have contributed to the municipality, which obviously well offsets the initial payment that was made to purchase the nursery lands in 1998.
So once the debt was paid, which was the 500,000 in the acquisition, the municipality continued to collect a $50,000 a year payment as per the lease agreement.
Yes. they did.
Okay. Thank you.
So in addition to being Eastern Ontario's largest nursery, producing over $2 million trees annually, and those are native and non-invasive trees and shrubs, we do fulfill our conservation and recreation commitments for the community through funding from the nursery. And we provide green space and active recreational opportunities that are very important to a healthy community. And we know that's an important component of this community. A number of examples of what we do with respect to public recreation with our partners are identified in the slide, which include 22 kilometers plus of public trails, the disc golf, the dog park, the toboggan hill, the arboretum, the giving garden, lots of green space, public space, water access. And we are working with the municipality and with the Indigenous peoples to find space for them within the arboretum as well. Now, obviously, if we do not have the capacity to continue operations, we won't have the opportunity to continue to contribute towards those public conservation and recreation activities. Carl.
So nurseries producing bare root seedlings in the province have not been well supported by the provincial government. In recent years, sales have decreased with the cancellation of the 50 million tree program, which was the main source of income for the nursery. The closing of the Angus seed plant, another provincial decision which forced the nursery to manage its own seed production, seriously impacted nursery operations and resulting revenue. Climate change and rising operation costs and aging infrastructure and equipment have added to the challenges facing the nursery. But through the efforts of a dedicated and committed staff, and in spite of the challenges, the nursery continues to operate. And with the infusion of investment money, we can look to the future with optimism. The nursery now has a contract to produce bare root seedlings for the federally funded 2 billion tree program until 2031 and beyond, both for afforestation and reforestation in the fight against climate change. Supplementing the bare root is their successful diversification into potted stock, perennials and shrubs to supply the retail market. Clients tell us they will continue to buy from us as long as our crop quality remains high. We must therefore invest in modernization to ensure we continue to produce quality stock. The nursery does not have the funding and no means to raise money for this modernization. And without investment, the nursery will continue to operate as in the past, with aging equipment and infrastructure, with reduced revenue, but for how long, we cannot say. Reduced revenue will affect the investment into the community as well. Challenges continue with high levels of sodium in the well water affecting some species, aging infrastructure, a lack of modern equipment, and labor market limitations. Next slide. This proposal is based on necessity. The Ferguson Forest Center Corporation did its due diligence in arriving at the decision to request this land sale. After consultation with various community groups, subject matter experts, current clients, municipal staff, and knowing that a positive decision would not affect current community activities or recreational activities or existing tree cover except for windbreaks, where many of the trees are dead or damaged, decision was made to request this land sale. Next slide.
So what are we respectfully asking of the municipality? So we are proposing that 5.3 hectares or 13 acres of vacant, non-prime agricultural, limited nursery capacity land owned by the municipality and currently leased by the Ferguson Forest Center be sold. And the funds from the sale be provided to the corporation for the purpose of implementing a capital plan to allow the nursery to recapitalize and modernize its equipment and infrastructure, and as well to support the enhancement of the conservation and recreation areas opportunities that we have, again, for the benefit of the whole community. Next slide, please. So where are the lands? The lands are the 5.3 hectares or 13 acres of vacant and limited quality soil lands, as noted, with limited tree coverage. Also doesn't have any public use or recreational activities in the area. It is fronting onto the north side of County Road 43 between the Catholic High School on the the west side, and the Anniversary Way on the east side. It's all within the Kemptville urban boundary and urban service areas of the municipal documentation. Next slide, please. So just to confirm its status as not being prime agricultural land, prime land is classified under the provincial policy as being classes 1, 2, and 3. And there is an odd case where class 4 may be in areas that are substantively 1, 2, and 3, which is not the case here. So if you look at this slide, you will see the lands that are located between the Catholic school and the road on the north side are class 4 and 5, substantive area 5, and the remainder being class 4. So they are not prime agricultural lands within the context of provincial policy. Next. So the nursery has developed a modernization and recapitalization strategy, and it does require an excess of $2 million to be implemented, and it would be implemented in stages over a number of years. The lands subject to the sale are within the Kemptville urban boundary, within the municipal urban infrastructure service area, and has limited use for the nursery. And this is further compounded by the widenings and other activity taking place on 43. Not that that is the impetus for the sale, but it's just another factor. And repurposing the site as a mixed commercial industrial use will maximize the return on the public investment in roads, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure that already exists or already is planned and will yield the highest monetary value and assessment return, in this case for the municipality. There would be an option to address community needs such as enhancing affordable and accessible housing within an active transportation area. And having this opportunity would give the municipality control, which I believe on occasion they find they don't have. And I would also note that the mixed-use concept is consistent with the Mayor's Housing Task Force recommendations, another life, but I just mentioned that. Ultimately, I do note that the long-term planning for the land use is within the jurisdiction solely of the municipality, and it'll be up to them to choose how they want to designate and zone the lands. But obviously, there are parameters the municipality has to follow with respect to applicable bylaws and regulation and acts. And that too would be within the purview of the municipality to follow through on whatever would be, whatever direction they choose to take with respect to the sale. So again, the land use is up to council and the process they choose to dispose of the property is up to council. Next slide, please.
So a focused financial plan has been developed. The plan is reflective of market pressures and long-term financial needs and viability, focused on targeting critical capital investment to address modernization and critical capital investments. We have previously discussed with the municipality some of these priorities. The Ferguson Forest Center Corporation will annually report in detail and show the funds, how the funds have been used. And council has a member on the FFCC board, and the municipality has access to the corporation's audited financial statements. So there will be significant oversight. Next slide. The corporation takes its commitment to the community very seriously. Capital investment can increase revenue, with profits being reinvested into the center for the benefit of the community. Also, should the revenue from the sale be more than the capital investment, money could be used to enhance recreational spaces. Things like an accessible trail from Anniversary Park to the Arboretum, compostable toilets in the Arboretum, an indigenous space, and improvement to trails are all projects which are now awaiting funding. But the lack of modern technologies in our greenhouses and field operations affect quality and therefore revenue. Currently, too much of our revenue goes towards maintaining aging infrastructure and outdated equipment. Modernization will allow the provision of an asset management plan to ensure longevity of equipment and infrastructure. It will also reduce the workload and stress on nursery staff and allow them to work more efficiently and effectively. Improvements to the center will have a positive economic benefit to the business community. As many of you may know, and one example is the dog park. We have visitors there from outside this community. They come in, they buy gas, they buy coffee, they buy food, they buy pet supplies. They bring business into our community. Next slide. So ultimately, this is an investment to remain relevant and viable through the sales of land that does not diminish our ability to grow trees while enhancing the potential for increased community benefits.
And if I could just add, Your Worship and Council, that there is a resolution in your agenda package, which certainly would be supported by the Ferguson Forestry Center to move forward, which the essence of it is that council receive the documentation and refer it to staff for report. The clerk has detailed an option for you to consider tonight. So certainly we are supportive of that and appreciate that the effort was made to prepare that. The converse, of course, if you chose to just to accept this great proposal and move forward with it today, we'd also accept that. So thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Well, Thank you for the opportunity to present this proposal, and we'll now take questions.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation, and without further ado, I'll defer to council colleagues with any questions they may have at this stage. Any questions, colleagues? Not seeing any hands. Councillor O'Sullivan, thank you. So sorry, Councillor
Of course.
O'Sullivan. All right, go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Mr. Cannon and Mr. Doucette. Thank you for the very thorough presentation and explanation. I have taken advantage of receiving some of the little seedlings on, I think it was at Sustainable North Grenville Days, and I actually nurtured them in my flower beds and have transplanted them along the rail trail, and they are now approximately 3 feet high. So I'm very happy with the work that the Ferguson Forest does, and really value the importance of trees to our climate and to our community. I do have a couple of questions that I'd like you to clarify for me, please. The 2 billion tree program, I believe you said you have a contract with the federal government till 2031, which is only 7 years away. So can you give me an idea of what you think might come next? I mean, hopefully that will extend beyond that, but do you have any idea what customer base would be going forward after that?
So thank you for the question, Doreen. So the 2 billion tree program was very slow, and is very slow getting off the mark. They're not nearly planting enough trees to meet a 2031 deadline. So it's everybody's thought that that's going to be extended much past 2031. However, what the nursery wants to do, and the reason we want this investment money, is that we want to diversify. We, as a nursery, have to become less dependent on government programs, because government programs are at the whim of the government in power at the time. And we want to diversify to go more into the retail market, to sell to sellers, and to diversify more into potted stock, shrubs, perennials, trees, that we can sell on the retail market. Right now, we're approximately 70% bare root, 30% potted stock. We would like to reverse that. 80% retail potted stock and 20% seedlings. That will take our dependency away from the government and moving to the private sector. We will never stop producing bare root, because we sell bare root to private clients as well. But being at the mercy of government programs like we've been from 2000 until 2018 is not the way to go.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that, because having had the provincial 100 or 1 million tree program cut off makes me a little nervous about what might happen to the 2 billion tree program federally. The other question I have is regarding the trails. You mentioned 22 kilometers of trails. I gather that would include the cross-country ski trails that are very popular and well used during the winter when we have adequate snow. Now, they are mostly in the MNR lands that we don't own and you don't own, but you have a land use agreement with. So is that a secure land use agreement for an indefinite or a pretty infinite period of time, that we will have that recreation space going forward?
Absolutely. And we have a good relationship with MNR. And we've been discussions with them to increase our responsibility for management of the Crown land. Right now, our agreement states that we can only manage trails, but right now we're looking at an approved agreement where we can do some forest management. The Crown has no interest in divesting itself of that land. They're very happy that we're managing it and want more of responsibility with the management of that area. So, I think, I think we're in good shape there. We have the relationship with M&R and everything's fine there. Fingers
Good.
crossed.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that, and I know very well that the entire community, those trails in there are very precious to the people of North Grenville, and we love them. And I do too, even though I got lost in them a few times, but I'm happy with the new signage. My concern is if this didn't go forward, the land use agreement that you have with the MNR is only with the Ferguson Forest Corporation, not with the municipality of North Grenville. So I do worry about what would happen if you didn't get the funding, and if we couldn't or you couldn't proceed, the Ferguson Forest or the nursery couldn't proceed, then what happens to that agreement? Would it go to the municipality? Would we lose that land? Because that's a gem, a very valuable asset to our community that I would hate to see lost along the way. So I think that's another very important reason for ensuring the viability of the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation and the tree nursery.
Do you have any further
Was
comment, Mr.
that a
Doucette?
question or a comment?
I'm
Katrina?
asking. do
Well,
you have
a little
comment?
both.
Councilor Sullivan, why don't we just let Mr. Doucette comment on access to M&R lands if
Okay,
the
thank
Ferguson
you.
Forest Corporation didn't exist?
Yeah,
Thank
so currently the Ferguson Forest Center Corporation has an agreement with M&R.
Mhm.
If the nursery should close down, of course, the corporation would cease to exist as well. And therefore, it would be up to the municipality to seek some type of arrangement with the ministry for the management of those trails and everything else that's on the Crown land. And oh, by the way, the municipality would also be managing the 300 acres of nursery as well.
Right.
Great, thank you. I'm just cognizant of time in other hands. I did just want to highlight something in your presentation. Of course, there's the Ferguson Forest Corporation, and then within that is the nursery, which is a social enterprise that is contained within the overall corporation. When we speak of seeking grants from external partners, as you know, with the $2 billion tree program, certainly the federal government was signaling, I think, an appetite to invest in nurseries and to invest in tree canopies. I was curious about your comment that you don't believe that there is a lot of external funding that might be available to inject into, obviously, what remains a very, in my view, it's a thriving nursery. We completely accept your observations and your lived experience that it's an urgent need of modernization. But from your understanding of the landscape for a not-for-profit corporate entity or the nursery itself, which is a social enterprise, you were unsuccessful in identifying a funding opportunity for something like modernization?
Yeah, that's correct. The 2 billion tree program certainly had federal money available, but not to nurseries, which is unfortunate.
So the contract of which you speak with the federal government is to supply, am I missing, you have a contract until 2030, and that contract is with which entity then?
Okay, so we are, Forest Ontario submitted a proposal against an RFP for revision of seedlings. So we have, and they were given a contract, and then they provided us with a contract, okay, to provide seedlings to them under the 2 billion tree program.
What you're suggesting is you were not directly eligible to enter that contract, so you've been subcontracted effectively.
Yes, I'm sorry for misunderstanding your question. You're absolutely right. We cannot bid, as a nursery, we cannot bid on any of the RFPs coming out from for the 2 billion tree program.
Okay, so you've been contracted by sort of a third party, if you will.
Yeah, and the good news there is that we have a relationship with Forest Ontario because for, 20-odd years, we've been dealing with them under the 50 million tree program. So we have a strong relationship, which helps. Yeah.
And then the availability of funds for capital, for modernization of equipment, technology, what have you. From your assessment and your investigation of what might be possible, you were unable to identify any opportunities sort of in the larger landscape, whether it was government or philanthropic, that would enable you to invest in the nursery modernization.
Just, Your Worship, in addition to the comments that Carl had with respect to Forest Ontario, we as an entity ourselves looked into what financing options are available. And actually through an introduction from your own staff, we did meet with the Community Futures as one party. I mean, we met with others, but we did sit down with the Community Futures to identify what options may be available either through grants or other funding approaches that they have access to. And as you know, they have a pretty wide net they can direct us to. And so we had those discussions. Basically, there were no grants available, and that any financing program didn't really fit our needs as a social enterprise, not-for-profit type company. And many other programs, you also have to have capital to contribute. So, once there's money available, we would look to enhance that fund through then being able to access funds that maybe otherwise we aren't currently able to access. So, we've tried and we did appreciate the assistance in municipality, but it wasn't successful.
And in addition, I can't say the names here in public. However, we did have dealings with two private enterprises with regards to possible partnerships. But our situation with aging infrastructure and the lack of modernization did not bode well for those partnerships. So maybe in the future, but not right now.
So I'm going to recognize, I think Councillor Barclay has his hand up. I just wanted to ask one follow-up question. At what point did it become obvious to you that the state of the nursery in terms of its equipment and water quality was adversely affecting the productivity of the nursery? Clearly, obviously, when Mr. Cameron passed away, we revisited the story of how the Ferguson Forest was acquired and the considerable efforts that were undertaken by the mayor of Oxford and Rideau at the time to obtain the nursery. And it's really impressive. It was such a proud moment, I think, for North Grenville. And Mr. Cannon, you were reminding me in your delegation that volunteers effectively maintained the nursery that was abandoned by the province until an arrangement could be worked out. So clearly the nursery and the lands are of great value to the community. So I just wanted to ask, at what point did it become obvious that you were in urgent need of that modernization? Because obviously the nursery and its equipment has been part of your operations for
Sure.
many, many years. I know you haven't been the chair the whole time, Mr. Doucette, so I know others have preceded you, but
Seems like it.
what was the tipping point for you to have to, arrive at the conclusion
Sure.
that something rather dramatic, if you will, or it might be regarded by some as dramatic, needed to be taken?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Your Worship. So it's been a few years. With the 50 million tree program did not stop suddenly. It was winding down over a number of years. We were getting less and less tree requirements through that program. So we started a diversification process, but diversification takes a long time. You're starting a new crop. It takes a while to grow that crop, to find clients, and to find a market for that product. So it was getting to a head just pre-COVID, and then COVID hit, and then that just rocked the boat big time for any number of reasons. We we were having more problems with our equipment. For example, I'll give you one example. Our spring lift is the most important part of our year. It's 2 weeks where all hands go in the fields, lift our crops, and get ready to ship them. So right in the middle of our lift machine broke. I asked our general manager, who's here tonight, by the way, how old is that machine? I don't know. It was here when I got here. So $6,000 later and a day's loss in lifting, we moved forward and we finished the lift. Anyway, I digress. Once COVID hit, things got to a head because everything seemed to change after COVID. The price of everything went sky high. We are paying so much for cost of goods to grow our seedlings. And then we recognized, well, it's not just the cost of goods. We're spending a lot of money in maintaining aging infrastructure. Our nurseries, our greenhouses rather, need significant modernization in order to produce quality stock. We are using equipment in the field that was here in the 1990s. The technology has moved forward and we haven't moved forward with it. So it was really just pre-COVID and then after COVID up until now that we really found the need for investment. And then, you're well aware of the well water and our issue there. And that came to a head as well, right? I mean, there's no way we can afford the fixing of that problem without some type of investment. We don't know how much it's going to cost yet. We've accepted a proposal from a company. They're doing a study now, but it could be in the tens or hundreds of thousands. We just don't know. But unless we get that well water problem fixed, we're going to remain in a bit of jeopardy.
And when you speak of well water, you speak of salination
Yes.
in the water, which was part of the presentation
Yes.
this evening, correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And I understand that North Grenville's water generally is more salinated, or is this particularly unique to the water on which you draw? Ms. Dunlop, can you answer that?
Certainly, Your Worship. The well system and the wells, the raw water which we draw for the town of Kemptville does have naturally occurring sodiums within the water, yes.
And we treat that water before, obviously, we send it back out to the community, whereas you're using the water untreated, I presume. Is that the difference, Mr. Doucette?
That's correct.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Mayor, we do not treat for the sodium
Mhm.
within the water. We chlorinate, we aerate, and we test continuously, and that it is sent into the distribution system in accordance with our license.
So you don't remove the salinating elements in the water?
We do not reduce the sodium, correct?
Because it's safe to drink, clearly.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. I'm sorry, colleagues. I went down paths I didn't expect, but I'll recognize Councilors Barclay and then Sarkian. And I see Councilor Sullivan has her hand up, so we'll recognize her once we get through the other ones. All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the, the two Carls, Mr. Doucette and Mr. Cannon. As you know, before I was elected to a council in 2018, I worked with TD Grayman and Associates on marketing materials for the Ferguson Tree Nursery. So you could say I'm somewhat invested in its success, but the devil's in the details. It all depends on how we do that. So my question, and obviously we're going to have another chance to talk about your proposal in June if we go forward with that motion. But my question is, if council eventually agrees to your proposal, would the Ferguson Forest Center board be agreeable to taking the proceeds of the sale as a loan? Potentially a forgivable loan over 20 years, interest-free with conditions such as financial reporting, public financial reporting to the community. And B, would you be amenable to taking it in increments based on your cash needs? Now, you mentioned a capital plan and a modernization plan. I imagine the modernization plan is a priority to get things up and running and be competitive. but perhaps the capital plan could be later on, could be realized later than the modernization plan. So that, of course, would be based on a 3 to 5 year business plan that you would produce. And that would be part of the condition. So I'll leave that with you. Maybe I don't expect you to answer that right now. You may have to consult with the board, but that's my question. Thank you.
Any comments, Mr. Doucette?
No, only that I can't speak on behalf of the board.
Okay, I'll recognize Councilor Strachan and then over to Councilor. I'll actually go to Councilor Wilson because she has yet to speak and then back to Councilor Sullivan. Councilor Strachan.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much to, I was going to call you the two Carls, sorry, Mr. Cannon and Mr. Doucette. I have I guess a few questions. I'm just going to come back to the point made regarding the sodium levels in the water. I know that when we attended Roma, we spoke with OMAFRA, a representation from the province to talk about getting expertise or making expertise and experts available to the Ferguson Forest Corporation to talk about this issue and perhaps trying to, come up with some solutions or offer their experience on, what they have seen elsewhere. Has that connection happened?
Maureen?
They didn't have any solutions.
Yeah, most of our work on the salt issue has been with the municipality. The municipality has been very helpful in helping us put an RFP on the street and dealing with the contractor. So we want to thank the municipality for that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just wanted to understand where that conversation had gone with OMAFRA. Thank you. From what I'm hearing, there's the plan, as the deputy mayor has mentioned, to modernize and to come up with a overall better operating situation for the Ferguson Forest nursery. I guess there's two parts to my question is one, what is the timeline that you're looking to implement? Either both of these parts or together, depending on how you're planning on doing this. And just to confirm what the total investment is that's required.
Yeah, so we have immediate needs and then we have needs over a protracted period of time. So just to give you an example of some of our immediate needs that would happen right away. The salt water or the sodium in the water solution for sure. Upgrades and repairs to the greenhouses, new air compressors, new computer boards for water walkers, new AC fans, replace lower wall in the greenhouses, new greenhouse controllers, upgrading corrugated plastic, generators for the east greenhouses and seed freezers, new equipment for seed processing, a fanning mill, a kiln, cone, conditioning room, field operations. We need a laser weeder, fertilizer, drop spreader, 6-row furrow machine. I mean, this is what modern farms are using, and we're not even close. Not even close.
So with that list that you just read, is there an amount assigned to that total that you would be looking, that you would need to accomplish that modernization, replacement, and so on?
In our plan, we have funding against that. The problem with assessing the funding for this is that prices are rising all the time, and it's hard to get a firm quote unless you're actually purchasing. But we think that's probably in the tune of 750,000.
Okay, and that would be in addition to the 2 million that you're looking at for the modernization, is that correct? Or is that all?
That's part of it.
That's part of it,
Yeah.
okay. And so the timeline that you're looking to implement, the longest part of this, what are you looking at?
We're looking at a 3-year plan.
Okay. And then there was one more thing that you just mentioned that I was going to bring up. And I can't buy myself any more time. I forget what it is. I'll come back to it if I think of it. Thank you
Lots of
very
hands,
much.
so we can certainly
Thank you.
do another round. Okay, so I'm going to recognize Councilor Wilson. Welcome, and then we'll go back to Councilor Sullivan.
Hi, good evening to you, Mayor Peckford. I haven't done one of these virtual meetings yet, so I apologize if I don't do it right, but I'll do my best. I certainly appreciate this presentation, and I appreciate the fact that the Ferguson Forest Center board is made up of a board of volunteers, and that also the Friends of the Ferguson Forest Center. Volunteers are key to this, and I salute you all for going through all this and having to present and to have all these things brought forward to us. I have to tell you that back in the day, I was a weed picker and a tree plucker and a tree planter in the 70s, and that's when the nursery was flourishing, and there was lots of people working there. It was a major employer for the area, and I would love to see it return to those days. And I do understand that you do need to have modernization. My one question, it's a simple question. The land that you have identified for sale or possibly sale, would there need to be a contamination cleanup on that from fertilizing and pesticides and various other things? And who would bear the responsibility of that?
Thank you, Councillor. Unfortunately, a lot of land within the province has historically been used agriculturally. There is typically a waiting timeline before a developer can go from active fields into subdivision activity. I would, however, defer probably to your Director of Planning and to your engineering staff on the contaminant side, but my understanding is typical activities after a waiting period of a year or two are allowed to then actively move towards the development stage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll go back to Councillor O'Sullivan, please.
Whoops, sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I will back up because I've been getting messages that we look like bug heads on your screen, so I hope I'm coming across okay. So my question is follow up to what both Carls have said regarding infrastructure and equipment and everything being so outdated and needing modernization and needing upgrading. Clearly, there hasn't been a very good asset management plan going forward. So I want to know, in the past. So I want to know if the business plan going forward has asset management in it, because you can only sell the land once. And, you know, if this happens again down the road, then what? And I know that I could tell by your expression, Mr. Doucette, that you didn't really want to hear me mention asset management again, but I think it's very important, and I think it's been probably ignored for a number of years. And so I think we need to know that this isn't going to happen again, because we can't sell the land again. So that's my question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you.
I'll just turn it over to Mr. Doucette and Mr. Cannon. Should they make a comment?
As a matter of fact, in my presentation, I did say that with this modernization, with new equipment and new infrastructure, it would give us the opportunity to put in a first-rate, top-notch, best-in-class asset management plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to ask, obviously, I think part of your considerations in terms of identifying land that you felt were potentially saleable were minimizing the disruption to the nursery and the overall Ferguson Forest Center. I assume that was the case, given where the lands are located and your previous indications that they were certainly not the most productive in terms of what's available at the nursery. My question is more on sort of the aesthetic experience coming into Kemptville and with the changes on County Road 43. I think certainly some people are quite attached to the reality of seeing the nursery, seeing the trees, seeing those lands, really as part and parcel of what we valued in North Granville and continue to value. And clearly, given the really formidable efforts that went into securing the nursery, I wonder if there are other equally unproductive lands, if you will, that are located anywhere else within the Ferguson Forest Corporation that you contemplated coming to us for a potential sale. Because I know with all the construction, there are people who I think are attached to the aesthetic experience of coming in on 43 and seeing those lands. I realize that not everybody understands that we actually have a nursery that has operated for so many decades and is so overall productive. But I'm curious to know whether or not you looked at any other lands that would not disrupt, obviously, the integrity of the Ferguson Forest or the operations of the nursery as a possibility.
So I think we both have an answer to different parts of your question, because I think you have two questions there. The first is the aesthetics along 43. My good friend, Tom Graham, who's with us tonight, said, maybe we just don't want to see buildings there. What if you put a berm there? And on that berm, you planted some trees, and it's kind of an introduction into what's behind. It's the introduction to what's behind in the nursery, right? So, Tom being the kind of guy he is, he comes up with these great ideas. So there's a way of making it not so sterile if a developer wanted to do that.
Yes, Your Worship. Certainly, the landscape is changing along 43. Nothing stays the same. And to some people, that's a challenge, and other people, that's an opportunity. But the reality is that even now with the activity on 43, the landscape is changing. But as Carl is saying, there will be an opportunity at the Anniversary Way into the Forestry Center to either make some kind of gateway or some kind of presentation that will raise the level of the Forestry Center. That's in our interest to do that. And certainly that can be a process that we can look to input on. As far as lands available, since North Granville has acquired the property, there are really only frontages along 44 and 43 that have value. North Granville themselves have taken a portion of the frontage along 44 for fire hall. The part of the negotiations for this building saw a portion go towards Chopper Drug Mart. The province obligated North Granville to sell a chunk of land for the high school. And if you look along 43, the traffic volume that goes along there. So if you're looking at a property that doesn't affect our operation, that has the highest market value, that's frontage on 43. And it also then in turn will create the highest assessment back to the municipality. So on many levels, that is really the only site that is feasible and has all those assets. So obviously we looked at the boundaries, and that's the logical location to be.
Might I also ask, I don't know how many nurseries in Canada or in Ontario operate the way you do as a social enterprise. I'm not clear on if they're mostly private for-profit entities versus, what appears to be here a somewhat unique social enterprise, not-for-profit. But if I'm not correct, please state that. So I'm just curious, have you done a deeper dive into the actual experience of a nursery attempting to modernize and actually transform its operations to truly be a 21st century nursery? I'm curious. I know that you've identified these things for which urgent modernization is required, but do you have any familiarity with a business case where a nursery has successfully modernized?
So we are the only not-for-profit nursery of our kind in Ontario. And private enterprises tend to run differently than we run. And they would, in my opinion, would modernize as required, as opposed to in our situation where we did not take the opportunity because of lack of funding to do so. We are also probably one of the few nurseries that over a long period of time did one product only. I know that other nurseries who do bear root have diversified into many other products, so they're not as dependent on government funding as we were. So it's hard to compare us to other nurseries because we are just so different.
Okay, many thanks. So I'll just recognize one last round of hands, and of course, I'll go to Councillor Strachan, and then if there are any remaining questions, I'll take them before thanking our delegation. Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And I think this is going to be more of a statement than it is a question, but I'm going to put it out there. I appreciate the thought that's gone into the lands and considering how the municipality could maximize its profit on those lands, and that they're the most attractive from a sale and development and different ways to mitigate having buildings there. I think that from the request that's before us right now is that you're seeking $2 million. And how we get that $2 million or how we get to that solution, I think is part of what needs to be deliberated between now and June, if that's the way that the motion goes forward. So I think I'm putting that out there, that the solution isn't only to sell that land for development and maximize the municipality's profits, but it is also to consider how $2 million could be perhaps loaned and through various mechanisms that the municipality would have for the Ferguson Forest revitalization and rejuvenation.
Yeah, and the 2 million is an estimate. Once we get into actually going out to tender to purchase, it could be significantly different. It could be slightly lower, it could be slightly higher. I mean, that's a benchmark to shoot for, but it's certainly not cast in concrete at this time.
Any remaining hands? I'm not seeing any. So thank you, Mr. Doucette and Mr. Cannon. And I know, Mr. Cannon, you certainly have reminded us that you were here or certainly were serving in a municipal leadership capacity as I think the nursery was being assumed by the not-for-profit Ferguson Forest Corporation. So I know you have a long history and you're obviously very well grounded in the realities of how much the center means. And Mr. Doucette as chair, I have no doubt that you've thought long and hard about the best way forward. So we appreciate that. And certainly I think to Councillor Strachan's point, our job now is to really consider this in the context of the resources you need to modernize, and whether it's sale of lands or another option. I look forward to speaking with council colleagues and getting more information from staff on the various options. So we do have a, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson. I apologize. I did not see your hand. Before going to the motion, I'd certainly welcome any other comments.
Just quickly through you, Madam Mayor, to Carl Doucette and Carl Cannon, and to they could answer for the board. If I was a genie and had a bottle and you rubbed the bottle, what would be the greatest wish, or what would you wish for, number one?
Purify our water.
So that's that would be your
That's
top
number
notch.
one. That's number one right now.
Okay, thanks.
So you mean desalinate when you say, because there's lots of questions in North Grenville about water quality. So when you say purify, to be clear, you're speaking
Desalinate,
specifically
yeah.
about the sodium content that's coming from the aquifer from which you draw.
The water is potable to
Yes.
drink, but it doesn't allow certain varieties at their young age to progress, and it either kills them or makes them weak. So
Mhm.
it's fine to drink. It's just some plants don't like it.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Thank you for that. All right. So at council, the recommendation this evening is that we receive the report titled Growing in a Sustainable Future, a proposal for land disposition and investment from Ferguson Forest Center, and direct staff to report back on implications and options on the request from Ferguson Forest Center in June 2024. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Council Strachan. Apologies, council colleagues who are going virtually. I caught the in-person hands first, so thank you. Any final comment before I call the vote? Don't see any. All in favor, raise your hands.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Colleagues, do you wish for a 5-minute recess, or are you good to carry on? You're okay? Okay, we'll see how long this takes. Under consent, we have a number of different items, including pitch and week, various tenders. So I will look to your, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for consent, for proposed consent items. I would like to indicate that the tender in the value of $495,000 and the tender in the value of $905,000, I would like to pull from consent. So I think that leaves us with just one award, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. It's the capital ones I would like to pull. I think there were some very large tenders being awarded, and I would prefer to not have them under consent. So the largest ones are the ones that I would prefer to have a discussion about. Not because I have any concerns, I just want the public to fully understand what's being awarded. Okay, so with that, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for a modified consent agenda. Deputy Mayor, and I'll look, Councillor Sullivan, thank you. And I'll call the question, all in favor?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So I believe then that takes us to Public Works. And I think we did adopt pitch-in as part of our consent agenda. Just a little public service announcement. I know we're always excited to do pitch-in, and Ms. Dunlop, I just wanted to confirm that we are a participant in Pitch-in Week this year in the municipality of North Granville.
Yes, your worship, we have been a participant in the Pitch-in Week for many years.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll go to our tender awards, Capital Roads. And I will look to the first one. Yes. Oh, Parks and Rec. Did I miss that? Oh, I really apologize. Okay. I'm looking at Parks and Rec, and I do see it, Parks Division Tractor and Implementation Purchase. Okay. I will recognize our Parks and Rec team here, and I'll go to you for your presentation. I apologize. I normally go off the digital version, which is a little easier for me, so I'll resort to that. So Mr. Guy, are you starting things off?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Mr. Peshnik is here, and Mr. Peshnik will speak to the report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before you this evening is to award a purchase of a Kubota L6060 tractor with implements, 2 top-line trailers in the amount of $148,834.49 plus HST, and reallocate capital funds from the Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller project that recently tendered under budget to fund the over budgeted amount of $13,834.49. Next slide, please. So the Parks and Rec, mainly the Parks Division, has acquired year-round recreational amenities, resulting in additional maintenance and tasks beyond its current fleet capabilities. The fleet growth ensures legislative and operational maintenance of assets are met, not limited to play structure maintenance, trail maintenance, and the outdoor refrigerated rink at Riverside Park. Next slide, please. So in the 2024 capital budget, 135,000 was approved for the purchase of a tractor with implements to support park operations. The Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller project tendered under budget recently. There's a variance of between the budget amount for the tractor project of $13,834 and 49 cents plus HST that can be funded through the surplus capital funds from the Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller project. We received 3 tender submissions during the tender process, low bid being Top Line Trailers. Next slide, please. So with this project, it'll be efficient governments of service delivery, commitment to asset management planning, and ensuring maintenance review and operational support requirements to existing assets. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this report.
Great, thank you. And what does, in plain language, what will this trailer actually do? Or tractor, rather? Trailer, tractor, maybe you can help clarify.
Yep, so thank you, Madam Mayor. The tractor is going to be a versatile asset for the Parks Division. It's going to cut grass, plow snow, be used on the outdoor rink, trail maintenance. It's just going to be used across the board in all park operations.
So it's effectively supports the maintenance of Parks and Rec facilities, both grass, snow clearing, and how will you use it on the outdoor rink? I'm curious.
In future, we're going to have another report for ice resurfacer and implements, and through that, we're looking for an ice resurfacer implement that will be attached to this tractor.
Okay, so that we don't have to have the Zamboni here travel down to Riverside Park? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
Okay, because currently, is the one that was used this winter also in use here in the municipality?
That's correct. It
Okay.
services one of the pads here at this facility.
So the preference ultimately is to have a sort of dedicated ice resurfacer at Riverside.
That's correct.
So it doesn't have to travel the streets of Kempville, more or less?
That's correct.
Okay, okay, thank you. And how many tractors do you currently have?
We currently have 2 in the fleet,
Okay.
which are year-round operations. It's just proving not to be enough,
Okay.
just with our added assets.
And you also, of course, manage some of the campus facilities with those 2 tractors. Do I have that right? In terms of mowing of grass, et cetera?
That's correct. Weekly, we cut around 300 acres of grass, plus all our trail maintenance, park maintenance, baseball maintenance, like the grooming of the diamonds, grooming of the trails. So our
Soccer
tractors.
fields? So you would do the soccer fields as well?
We cut the grass with the tractors, but
Yep.
we also use the tractors to groom the infield, like for the baseball diamonds. So
Gotcha.
they're a very versatile tool,
Okay, and they seem well utilized, clearly.
very well utilized.
Okay, thank you. Council colleagues, any other questions in regards to this? Okay, great. Well, thank you, and I apologize that I glossed over you. I had Public Works on the brain, but thank you for your explanation. And I believe the recommendation for council tonight is to award the purchase of the Kubota L6060 tractor and implements to Top Line Trailers for the amount of $148,834.49 and reallocate capital funds from the Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller project that recently tendered under budget to fund the over budgeted amount of $13,834.49. So really what we're contemplating tonight is the overage, because this had been a budgeted item previously. It's just the amount that went over what your expected cost was. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder then.
I will move. It's Doreen.
Okay. Doreen and Councilor Wilson, do you want to second that? Since I can see you. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't see that there are any other comments or questions. All in favor? Good. Thank you. Before we let you go, you did refer to the Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller project. Can you just fill us on briefly on what that project is intended to do?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. So the idea of the Kempville Pool Aquatics Controller, it maintains the free chlorine in the pool. So that's the sanitizer in the pool. It just helps us meet our legislative requirements to operate the pool, just rather than manually adding the chemicals. So it's just a health and safety add for staff. It just helps the process.
And the condition of that pool is fairly good right now, right? And your ongoing maintenance and investment lead us to believe that that pool could be of service to the community for many years, if not decades to come. Would that be your assessment?
Our Parks and Facilities team does ongoing maintenance of the coping tiles of the pool. In future years, we're going to have to do some Marblite or gunite, the plastering of the pool, just do some repairs. But by staying on top of it, from a management or from a maintenance perspective, it heads off large capital investments. That's it.
Good, great to hear. Okay, thank you. I think we can move on to Public Works now, council colleagues. Thank you for being with us tonight. Okay, so in terms of Public Works, we are looking at the tender awards, Capital Roads, and I believe we have a number of awards proposed under one recommendation. Is that correct? Okay, so maybe Ms. Dunlop or Mr. Finley, you're here. Yes, just the Cornwall gravel tender for 495,000. And the asphalt paving to Blair Asphalt Products in the amount of 905,000. I'm just curious as to what these awards are intended to accomplish. I think I know the answer, but you can tell me, and how these price points have compared to previous years.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I do get to that, I did just want to let you know that through the Pitching Canada program, when we wrote the report, we had not received confirmation from them about additional pitch-in bags. However, this morning they did finally reach out, so we do have additional bags coming. So I just thought I'd bring that to our attention because the report did indicate we hadn't heard from them, but they finally got around to us. So we do have more bags coming. So in regards to reports or the tenders, exactly as you mentioned, we did have a number of capital programs that were set for our capital roads projects. We had the crushed rock from the quarry source. This is part of our gravel rebuild program. It was tendered for Hess Road, a portion of Town Line Road and Norton Road, as well as part of the River Road rebuild program that we're doing, which will also be paved as well, which will run from the bridge to Acton's Corners. So it was tendered, publicly tendered. It did close. We do tender our comparisons by the ton for granular B and granular A to get that total amount based on some estimated tonnages. We did see that our granular B cost did increase slightly. We did notice that our granular A cost did decrease slightly, but only by a couple of cents per ton. So that was a number of contractors bid, and that Cornwall gravel was the lowest bid overall based on the tonnages provided. In regards to the slurry seal that was awarded to Miller Paving, that was for just over $165,000. That is to seal some hard surfacing that was done in the previous year for Bolton Road and Todd School Road, and also the shoulders for Smith Road. That was part of the project, capital project last year. Again, we did see actually for the full road research or slurry seals, we did see a decrease per square meter. It went from last year at $4.64 per square meter down to $4.15. However, with the Smith Road shouldering, because it's a bit of a different project, we did see an increase in price in that square meter, and that's just due to the nature of the different equipment that needed to come in because it's the shoulders instead of the full road. And then finally, in regards to the asphalt overlays, there was a long list of overlay projects that we did tender out, which includes a section of Beach Road, Guy Road. This will be the paving for River Road, that section that we're going to do the gravel replacement as well, including extending it or extending the asphalt for recycling and that continuation of our project. We are doing the paving for Totem Ranch Road, which is a split project between us and Edwardsburg, and then a number of smaller roads as well. We also did include, as part of this to help get some better pricing, is some paving of the parking lot in Riverside Park, just do some drainage changes that are going to occur there, and also the paving of the Riverside Park MUP. So those were included as for part of the Parks and Recreation Department. The intent being if all the projects were tendered at once, we would hopefully see a better fair market value for it. What we did notice is based on last year, on average, we did see an increase per tonnage for asphalt. On average is about $120 a ton last year. We did see about $140 per ton based on overall the extent of the overall projects.
Thank you. I appreciate that context. So I'm grateful for your explanations. And it's a good reminder of some of the priority road projects for this year. Council, I won't reread the motion. It's in front of you, but obviously I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the award of tenders for items number 1, 2, and 3, as is written in our agenda. So mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, anyone want to go online? All right, Councilor Strachan, thank you. A motion's been moved and seconded. Any final comments? Yes, Councilor Strachan, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, apologies, Mr. Finley, Director Finley. I just wanted to confirm that are these amounts within the budgeted plan? I'm not sure if you said that. Sorry, I missed it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Strachan, that is correct. Everything is under budget at the moment from what we had proposed to Council.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Seeing no other hands. Oh, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. I know it wasn't pulled out of consent, but can you just tell us what the other award tender in 127 at 127,000 is for and why it's not included in the previous?
It's an operational versus capital project, is my understanding. Mr. Finley?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor, this is the maintenance gravel tender that we issue every year. So this is for gravel on any of the maintenance that we need on the gravel roads for rural areas. It is done as a bulk price again, and it's applied as needed based on the conditions of the roads. So it's the amount of maintenance gravel we need throughout the year.
I think I need to call the question on the motion for the award of tenders for capital roads. All in favor, colleagues?
Yes.
Perfect, that passes. So I think we're now moving to petition for drainage works by road authorities. And Mr. Finley, I think that's you. We're just making good use of your time tonight, you understand. So you can go home to your family and say, yes, I was well utilized. Thank you for your patience. All right.
Not a problem. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report in front of council tonight is a request to accept petitions by both the municipality's road authority and the road authority of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. And it is in regards to drainage works or request for drainage works under the Drainage Act. This is a specified procedure under the Drainage Act that needs to be followed for this drainage works to take place, and looking for an exception of the petitions. So next slide, please. So for some background, this originally came through with some complaints about some drainage issues along the drainage corridor north of County Road 43. It does outlet into a number of municipal drains. The petitions themselves are based on being from the road authorities, are in regards to County Road 43, the section between the Colonnade roundabout and the County Road 19 roundabout. From the municipal roads, it is regarding Colonnade Drive and Ryan's Well Drive. Again, based on the requirements of the Drainage Act, council is required to give direction to either proceed with the recommendation or the requirements of the petitions, or to deny the petitions. Next slide, please. So this aerial view was to give an indication of the drainage area that's being discussed. You can see near the center is the Colonnade roundabout. A little bit to the left is the County Road 19 roundabout. So that's the drainage area that they actually drains towards the old rail corridor that was there. or do drain to the rail corridor that is there at the moment, as well as through the drainage systems and through the Colonnade subdivision. The municipal roads there also drain to that location and continue up through the corridor, again, as mentioned, into outlets into municipal drains. And this is where we've had some concerns, or some concerns have been brought over to our drainage superintendent regarding lack of drainage to ensure these lands don't back up with water. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, historically, this area was drained through the subdivision lands and then out through the drainage ditches on County Road 43, and again heading north. As we mentioned, there was a drainage report that would be required if the petitions are accepted. Based on the Drainage Act and the petitions that are put forth to council, the municipality would be required to front end the costs of this project. And then depending on the results of the drainage report that would come through a drainage engineer, costs could be reassessed based on who is, what land is part of the drainage area. When the municipality did receive concerns about drainage north of County Road 43, we did hire Robinson Consultants to complete a comprehensive review of the municipal drains that was draining into this area, or that this area drained into. And they made some preliminary determinations of the drainage area to see if what's been altered. Next slide, please. So based on the Drainage Act, council does have two options to either accept the petitions or to reject them. If the petitions are rejected, the project at this point will not move forward. However, the petitioners could appeal it to the province. If it is accepted, there's some notifications that must be done, and under the Drainage Act, a drainage engineer has to be appointed within 60 days of the petitions being accepted. Next slide, please. So again, in conclusion, to ensure proper drainage throughout this area, 2 drainage petitions have been filed with the municipality, and again, looking for council's acceptance of the petitions based on the Drainage Act in an effort to move this project and ensure that any negative drainage is being rectified as soon as possible. And due to the preliminary investigations by Robinson Consultants, we are also looking to appoint Robinson Consultant, or have council appoint Robinson Consultants as the drainage engineer and create that drainage report and bring that back to council once that's complete. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, great. Of course, this petition also came to the United Counties of Leeds and Granville just last week and was anonymously accepted there. So I've had the benefit of going back and forth with Mr. Finley and Mr. Guy and Ms. Dunlop on the question of drainage, because the counties is certainly implicated. So any questions or comments, colleagues? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. My questions are regarding the financial impact and specifically about the cap of 35,000. I understand that the 35,000 is like a D-class estimate, but it's fairly conservative that the consultant thinks that a report can be completed for that amount. And the reason we're putting a cap on, it's my understanding, is because it's a sole source tender. Is that correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Barclay, yes, there was a cap of $35,000, and this was discussed with the consultant based on previous projects that have been completed under their understanding of the scope and projects that were done under the same magnitude. The intent of the $35,000 was to have some accountability for some costs until a full detailed plan could be worked out and agreed upon and move forward at that point. But it does get them started, knowing that there is a limit that the consultant would need to request for more funds moving forward. Again, once the Drainage Act, based on the Drainage Act, once the drainage engineer is appointed, there's certain responsibilities there that they must go through, and it's just to ensure some accountability in the cost moving forward.
And just to follow up regarding the scope of work, when is the date of delivery of this report?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the final determination hasn't been provided at the moment. Typically, what they do see is 12 to 18 months for that report. It does depend on the reach out to the potential landowners, some of the field investigations, and what can come about during those investigations. So that's typically what the consultant has identified as a timeline. Again, once we get that scope worked out a little bit deeper, and we'll probably attach a bit more timelines to that, but that's their typical timeline.
Okay, any other questions here? I'm not seeing any, so obviously the motion is before us, so the recommended motion, which is that council accepts the petition submitted by the municipality's road authority, Director of Public Works, and the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville Road Authority, as per section 5.1 of the Ontario Drainage Act, Standing Order 2010, and appoints Robinson Consultants to prepare a drainage report in accordance with section 8.1 of the Ontario Drainage Act, and direct Robinson Consultants to produce one report with respect to multiple petitions as per section 8.4 of the Ontario Drainage Act. And I was advised that the Drainage Act is the second piece of legislation that was established in the province of Ontario, and certainly is a powerful piece of legislation. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councilor Strachan, thank you. Calling the question, all in favor? Good. Okay, that carries. And we'll move on to correspondence. And I see that we don't have any Ms. Preston this evening, no other business, and we do have one notice motion. Councilor Barkley? All right. Oh, and we do need your
Yeah,
mic.
sure.
All
Okay.
right.
Sorry.
I certainly can read the recommendation. You can speak
No.
if that's helpful.
I'll read it. Thank
Okay.
you. So my suggested motion is that council direct the Director of Parks, Rec and Culture to report back to council in the month of May on the budgetary implications and timelines associated with a request for proposal to complete a comprehensive community engagement related to the structural review of the former Oxford Mills Township Hall and its potential future use as a public facility. And the reason I brought that is that I felt that it was the adaptive reuse of the Township Hall. And when I say adaptive reuse, I mean the rehabilitation, not the restoration of the hall. So that means we're not looking for 150-year-old nails to put it back in shape, but that we can, as far as the interior goes, which is not subject to the heritage designation, that we can modernize the interior and fit it up so that it has some public use. So my interaction with the arts community here, there was lots of interest in, as a result of the survey that we did last year through the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and a consultation process. There was lots of appetite for a multi-use art space, for workshops, for musical lessons, for performances, for studio space, etc. But I felt that it was important to go out to the broader community and just test the appetite and find out what ideas beyond the arts community had for the hall, rather than just going full steam ahead and satisfying the desires of the arts community solely. So that's the rationale behind this motion. I'd like to do a comprehensive community consultation about public use of the former Township Hall in Oxford Mills. Thanks.
Good. Any comments or questions at this stage, council colleagues? Councilor Strachan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's a great idea. Deputy Mayor Barclay, I think it would be great to hear from folks beyond the arts community to see how they could use it. And perhaps if I can be bold to suggest, it'd be a great way to bring back our community, our discussion forums that we used to do that were so successful previously to engage residents. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else, colleagues? With a notice of motion, we're not voting on this. Are we voting on the notice of motion? We are. That council directed Director Parks. Okay. So this is the actual motion, not just the notice of the motion. Okay. We are actively considering the motion. I too am very favorable to this approach and thank Councilor Barclay for bringing it forward. I think we have a bold vision. I don't know what the vision is precisely, but I believe it will be a bold vision, and the more buy-in we get on the earlier end of our discernment process and the more ideas that can be generated and excitement that can also come with being a participant in a community engagement process, I think will only bode well for a future grant application. And I know that's really where we're headed, given the significant investment that is required. So with that, I'll look for a mover and seconder. I assume you would like to move that. Thank you. And Councilor Sullivan, I see you're seconding it. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please.
Yes.
Hands, please. Good. That carries. Thank you. So finally, introduction and consideration of bylaws. I believe we've addressed that this evening, Ms. Preston. I see no remaining members of the public, of the media. There are 2 members of the public. Any questions from members of the public? All right. I do see some staff in the audience, so thank you. And then I'll go to close the meeting. Confirmation bylaw 3224 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on April 16th, 2024 be adopted and passed. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Sullivan, Councilor Wilson, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. And then finally, motion to adjourn at 8:16 p.m. Councilor Strachan. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Calling the question. All in favor? Thank you. And before we close the meeting, Ms. Preston, was this meeting live streamed?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And it was in its entirety from
Yes,
start to
ma'am.
finish?
Yes, ma'am.
And can it be found on YouTube?
Yes, it can.
Okay, so all streaming is now working.
Yes, and we will also download a copy to the municipal website in addition to the YouTube.
Great, thank you. All right, meeting is adjourned.